Chapter 22, Till Death Do You Part. Coke and Pep's long nightmare was finally over. Archie Clone was dead, a victim of his own greed and insanity. Dr. Warsaw was dead, a victim of a very high fall from the Infinity Room at the House on the Rock. Mrs. Higgins was in all probability in police custody after foolishly trying to steal the top hat that Abraham Lincoln was wearing on the night he was assassinated. The Bowler dudes had flown away in helicopters, but neither of them seemed to have the smarts to mount a serious campaign of terror without the guidance of an inspiring leader. There was nobody left to bother Coke and Pep. When they woke up in the morning of July 4th, they were both smiling for the first time in a long time. A burden had been lifted. Finally, they could enjoy their summer vacation. Everyone rushed to get dressed. Aunt Judy's wedding was scheduled for noon on the grass in front of the Lincoln Memorial. The McDonald family had packed their nicest clothes for the occasion and had waited the whole trip to wear them. Before this year, Pep had never cared much about clothes or what she looked like, but today she was all decked out in a lovely blue skirt with a ruffled white blouse and a necklace with a butterfly on it. Coke hated to wear a jacket and tie, and put up with them as long as it was just for the occasional wedding or funeral. His pants and sleeves were just a little short because he had grown a few inches in the last year, but had refused to go shopping to get new clothes that fit. Dr. McDonald had on the jacket he wore to work every day with a red, white, and blue tie. Mrs. McDonald wore a conservative flower pink skirt, and she didn't want to put on anything that might outshine her sister, the bride and star of the show. Everyone in the McDonald family was used to throwing on a pair of shorts and a t shirt in the morning, so getting ready took longer this day, fussing with all the ties and buttons and zippers and belts. But in the end, they looked good. The all American family people stared at them as they boarded the metro heading into Washington. The 4th of July is a special day. It's America's birthday, after all, and everyone wants to go to the party in the nation's capital. People were holding little flags. Red, white, and blue was everywhere. Mrs. McDonald was understandably nervous about the wedding. She had not seen her sister Judy in many years. Bridget and Judy had grown up together in California, but after college, Judy had moved to Washington to take on entry level job in the government. For a short time she worked at the Pentagon. Bridget and Julie had a falling out when Judy started going out with and almost married a boy that Bridget didn't like. He seemed mean and abusive, and she didn't want her sister mixed up with a guy like that. Judy broke up with the boy a long time ago, but she and Bridget didn't reconnect after that. They had stopped speaking, and neither one wanted to be the first to apologize. Bridget was surprised when she received an invitation to Judy's wedding. Maybe it was a signal that their feud was over. In any case, the sisters hadn't seen each other in 10 years. Coke and Pep didn't remember meeting their Aunt Judy when they were very little. The McDonald's were already running late for the wedding, and there was a delay on the metro that made them even later. They got out at the Foggy Bottom metro stop and rushed about half a mile toward Potomac Park, where the Lincoln Memorial is located. I barely remember what Judy looks like anymore, Mrs. McDonald said as they hurried down 23rd Street. She probably looks the same, said Dr. McDonald, just a little older and grayer like us. What should I say to her? Just say congratulations. What if she's marrying some jerk? That's her business, not yours, Dr. McDonald advised. Don't judge her. That's what caused all the problems last time. Besides, how bad could it be? It was a beautiful day and lots of tourists were out. The McDonald's were looking for people dressed as the bride and groom. Over there, Coke said as they crossed Constitution Avenue. Hundreds of folding chairs had been set up in front of the Lincoln Memorial. The McDonald's grabbed the only four consecutive seats that were empty in the back. They could barely see the big statue of Abraham Lincoln. It looked like they had arrived just in time. The bride had already walked down the aisle, but the ceremony had not started yet. The Elvis Presley song Love Me Tender was playing out of a big set of speakers. Dr. McDonald took some coins out of his pocket and handed Coke a penny. Notice anything familiar? He said. Coke looked at the penny and turned it over. The image on the back was exactly what he was looking at, the Lincoln Memorial. You know, Dr. McDonald said, this is the spot where Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech. I know, Coke said. Isn't this beautiful? Mrs. McDonald said to nobody in particular as she fussed with her hair. I wondered how they were able to get a permit for this space. Dr. McDonald commented, somebody must have a lot of dough or a lot of clout. Shh, you're spoiling the mood, Ben. All I'm saying is you can't just pay somebody $100 to rent the Lincoln Memorial. Somebody pulled some strings. Shh, Mom. Pep complained. I can only see the backs of their heads from here. Shh, well, talked to Aunt Judy and her new husband after the ceremony. Mrs. McDonald stood up for a moment to get a better look at the front. She couldn't see much. The bride was wearing a traditional long white gown. The minister was standing at a podium, fussing with some papers. The groom appeared to be sitting in a wheelchair. I didn't know Judy's fiance was disabled, she said. Shh, Dr. McDonald replied. I think you're about to start. Mrs. McDonald sat back down. The buzzing in the crowd fell to a hush as the minister began to speak. Dearly beloved, he said, we are gathered here today to join together this man and woman in holy matrimony. Coke looked around. He wished he'd brought a portable video game system or his iPod. This was going to be boring. Marriage is a joyous joining of two people in heart and body and in mind, the minister continued. In marriage, two people make a lifelong commitment to embrace their dreams, to face their failures, their disappointments, and to one day realize their hopes together. Mrs. McDonald started to tear up, and Dr. McDonald handed her a tissue. Coke looked around to see tissues being passed around among the sniffling crowd. Even Pep looked like she was getting a little choked up. Cook looked over at his dad and they winked at each other as if to share a secret. Weddings are a girl thing. It would be so much fun if he and all the guys at the wedding would go to a basketball game instead. Probably even the groom would come along. This occasion is a celebration, the minister continued. A celebration of love and commitment with which this man and this woman began the rest of their lives together. We are here today to witness their joining in marriage, one of the holiest bonds. Coke looked around. The stupid tie was choking his neck. Some of the men weren't wearing ties. Why did he have to? One guy even had on shorts. He noticed that the Washington Monument was directly behind them, about a mile in the distance. He thought about what might have happened if things had gone differently there the day before. He wondered which was worse, being dropped from a helicopter onto the tip of Washington Monument or having to sit through a wedding ceremony. What greater thing is here, the minister continued, than for two souls to be joined together in love, loyalty, trust, and honesty? In marriage, two people promise each other to aspire to these ideals throughout their lives because, with mutual understanding, openness, sensitivity, care, respect, responsibility, and knowledge comes the appreciation of one's own happiness, growth, and freedom. Coke had barely heard anything the guy said after dearly beloved. The words just washed over him. He checked his cell phone for the time, looked around some more, and wondered when it was going to be over. The minister continued. If any person can show just cause why this man and this woman may not have joined together in holy matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. Coke looked around again. In the movies, this was the part where some old boyfriend would always jump up, tell the bride he still loved her, and the two of them would go run off together, leaving the groom and everybody else staring with their mouths open. No such luck this time. Everybody looked around at one another for an awkward moment or two, and then the minister turned to face the bride and continued. Do you, Judy McAllister, take this man to be your husband in holy state of matrimony? Will you love him, comfort him, honor and keep him in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better, for worse, in sadness and in joy, as long as you both shall live? I will, Aunt Judy said. The minister smiled and turned to face the groom, sitting in his wheelchair. And do you, Herman Warsaw?